We begin our coverage with the Environment Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson. Minister, thanks for joining us. Obviously, it's a file you've been waiting to see. What is the consequence of the Supreme Court finding this rises to a national concern? It is constitutional to have minimum standards on greenhouse gas emissions.
Well, I think Canadians are not going to be surprised that climate change and greenhouse gas emissions rise to the level of national concern. So what this does is it says that there is a clear pathway for the government to implement the Strengthened Climate Plan that we announced in December. The price on pollution is one part of it. Obviously, there are regulatory measures and significant investments that are going to help us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, exceed our current targets, and help to start to build an economy that's going to thrive in a low-carbon future. So it's a good day for Canada, and it's a good day for Canadians.
So the provinces like Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Alberta, some of them are saying, look, we don't want a carbon price that's enforced as a backstop by the federal government. We'll hit whatever minimum standards the government says for greenhouse gas emissions. We'll just do it our own way. Would your government accept that?
Well, we've always said that provinces and territories have the flexibility to be able to introduce their own carbon pricing mechanisms, so long as they meet certain national minimum standards. Those national minimum standards, we said in December, needed to be strengthened. But certainly, Quebec has its own system, British Columbia has its own system. And certainly we are open to conversations with provinces, including, Saskatchewan, Alberta. I understand Premier Moe has indicated that they may have an interest in putting in place their own system. We're open to that conversation so long as you meet the appropriate minimum standards around reducing emissions.
Okay, so yeah, Scott Moe's going to join us in a minute, but they've got this own idea of rebating at the pumps. He says he's got a made in Saskatchewan solution. You're saying you're open to that, but what is the minimum standard? Does it have to have a price on carbon that is the same, $40, $50 and rising to $170 by 2030?
So you know this, Evan, because I know you've spent some time looking at a lot of these issues in the past. There needs to be a minimum level of price stringency, and there needs to be similar areas of coverage. And we need to ensure that we get to equivalent outcomes. So the price will need to go up in line with the federal registry. And certainly there will need to be a system in place that doesn't, get rid of the price signal, which is the whole point of having a price on pollution, is that incents changes in behavior. But there are lots of different ways provinces can do that and customize a price to the specific needs of their local economies. British Columbia was in the game of pricing carbon well before the federal government. Quebec has its own system, which is quite unique relative to others. Right. So we're open to that conversation, but it's going to have to be effective.
Okay, or the backstop remains. Aaron O'Toole's about to join us. He's already said he's going to reject the Liberal price on carbon. He'll still hit the Paris Climate Accord targets, but he won't use any federally enforced mechanism. He'll work with the provinces. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I've been pretty deep in the numbers, and I will tell you that without a price on pollution and without a clean fuel standard, which he also opposes, there is almost no way that you can actually meet and exceed the targets. Aaron O'Toole to date has talked about pricing large emitters, which is already done. He's talked about technology and sounds a lot like Andrew Scheer and a lot like Stephen Harper in terms of wishing on a magic star that somehow that's going to save us. At the end of the day, you need a credible plan. It's going to have to be comprehensive. I think, Mr. O'Toole is going to have to bring that forward. And to be honest with you, even if you believed Aaron O'Toole that he had a plan, which he doesn't at this point, I mean, you got to worry about a party that, his own party, which has said that they don't believe climate change is even real.
Well, Scott Moe, who's also going to join us, he keeps suggesting that the price on carbon is just not an effective way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It doesn't work. It has some consequences, like it affects some of the poorest people, and it will drive industry out to jurisdictions that don't have a price on carbon, so there'll be job leakage down to the United States. What's your argument about that? Is that a fair criticism, that you're driving industries out of Canada to jurisdictions like in the U.S. that don't have a price on carbon?
Well, I would just say to Premier Moe, I mean, first of all, I think he should do his homework. Read the academic literature, go talk to an economist. They will tell you it's the most efficient and effective way to reduce emissions and to incent innovation. In terms of affecting poor people, again, I would ask him to go and look at the data, including the Parliamentary Budget Officer. The price on pollution, the majority of Canadian families are better off, and those of more modest income are the best off of all. So it's exactly the opposite. And at the end of the day, I mean, politicians should not be able to make up their own facts. You can have different perspectives, but don't make up facts.
I get it, but what about leakage? The Conservatives, again, I've heard them say it, and I'll ask this to Mr. O'Toole in a minute. The argument is this will drive industry and jobs to the United States where they do not have a price on carbon, that you're making us uncompetitive. What is your answer to that?
Well, I would say I think Mr. O'Toole is completely incoherent here. I mean, he's talking about pricing industrial emissions, and at the same time, he's talking about how he's concerned about leakage and job losses. At the end of the day, we have put into place an industrial pricing system that ensures that exporters are protected from the price to ensure that there is no leakage. But at the end of the day, you know, that is something that we have done that he will need to do if he wants to move forward. You can't say somehow that you want to price industrial emissions, you're worried about leakage, and you're not actually going to ensure that you're protecting those export industries, which is what he is saying. It's completely incoherent.
Okay, last question. Jason Kenney's concern here, Minister, is on a more constitutional level, that this now pierces the watertight compartment theory that what's provincial jurisdiction and what's federal jurisdiction, and that this gives essentially unlimited authority to the federal government to take over provincial jurisdiction on other matters and start legislating things that are provincial jurisdiction. What is the response? Are you concerned about federal overreach using this decision?
No, I'm not. And I think Premier Kenney should perhaps temper the comments a little bit. I used to be a constitutional negotiator. You know, the Peace, Order, and Good Government Clause has been part of the Constitution from the very beginning. The doctrine of national concern has been around for a long time. What the court found is, in this case, because of the way in which climate change works, that it is a doctrine of national concern, and there needs to be addressed in a similar way in terms of minimum standards across the country. So I don't think that there is any concern with respect to federal overreach. This is just an affirmation of what the federal government's been saying for the last number of years.
Right. All I will say, Russ Brown, one of the Supreme Court judges from Alberta, did have a dissenting opinion, absolutely concerned about overreach, but the majority were not, and they wrote about that in the decision.
Well, let's be clear, Evan, that was 1 out of 9. That was 1 out of 9. So.
Yeah. Well, Malcolm Rowe and Justice Cote talked a bit about that as well, to be fair. 3 out of 9 did all talk about an overreach concern. But Minister Wilkinson, good to have you on the program.